Welcome to the Alex Jones Nightly News Report. I'm Danny Panzella with a special report from New York City. I've got a bunch of police state news to cover, and the first article is from the New York Civil Liberties Union. They have filed a class action lawsuit challenging the NYPD patrols of private apartment buildings. The NYPD has implemented a program, it's called Operation Clean Halls, which they have reached out to private apartment owners and basically gotten permission to go inside the buildings and sweep the halls for criminal activity. And what they've done is just basically turn these apartment buildings into police states. They're roaming the halls and stopping and frisking residents in their own homes, not inside the apartments, but inside the building. And this is absolutely a violation of the Fourth Amendment. There's no warrants. There's probably, in most cases, not even probable cause. Many people are being harassed and detained for not having ID. So if you walk out of your apartment to maybe go down to the laundry room and you don't bring your ID and you happen to run into one of these patrols, well, it's tough luck for you. You may be getting arrested. A lot of family members and friends are also being harassed coming to visit people. So there's a video out, which if you search class action lawsuit challenges NYPD patrols, and a lot of the residents are saying that this is really causing a problem between the police and the community. They no longer trust the police, that they're being harassed in their own homes. Their friends and family don't want to come visit them anymore, and it's made life unbearable. And for some of these people, these are the only apartments that they can afford. These are largely Black and Latino communities that are being adversely affected by this policy. This is nothing new. This really has no place in a free society, this type of behavior from the police. Just complete lack of respect for constitutional rights. In other stop and frisk news, the new report is out that details the stop and frisk activity. NYPD stops and questions record-breaking 1,900 people a day. In 2010, they broke stop and frisk records, detaining 601,000 people. And in 2011, that number is up to almost 700,000 people. This is just insane that they've stepped up this tactic. That's, again, a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment. No probable cause. They just stop it. They can legally lie to you. The courts have ruled that the police are allowed to lie to you to get information from you. So they can say, well, you fit the description of X that committed X crime, so we need to search you. And they could just make up the circumstances completely. 84% of those stopped were Black or Latino. Only 9% were white. And only 12% of the people stopped were given a ticket or arrested for some crime or another. I would imagine a lot of them are probably arrested for exercising their Second Amendment right to defend themselves with a weapon of some sort. Paul Brown, the NYPD spokesman, claims that 819 guns were recovered as a result of the stops. He doesn't mention if they were illegally owned guns. Quite possibly people in their own homes could have been carrying legally owned guns. We don't know. There's no statistic. They just want us to assume that they mean illegally owned guns. But 8,000 weapons were seized. So mace, a knife, who knows? A lot of women are probably carrying mace and pepper spray in those types of neighborhoods. And the residents are saying they prefer to go up against the criminal element. They're more afraid of the police than they are of the criminals that live in their community. What I see happening here is the NYPD setting up problem reaction solution. They put such pressure on the minority communities with the stop and frisk policies that there's such an outcry from the community against it that then they come in and say, and this leads us to our next story from CBS, NYPD and feds testing gun scanning technology. They're going to be implementing the terahertz scanning body scanners, the naked body scanners, or the porno scanners, as they're sometimes called, that they're using in the airports, that the TSA uses. Now they're going to be mounting these scanners to the back of police cars, and the police cars driving up and down the blocks are going to be scanning people for weapons. So Ray Kelly says this is going to put a stop to stop and frisk. No longer will we have to stop people randomly. We will just scan people as we drive, and anybody that we see has a gun, we can just stop and target them with more reasonable suspicion. But again, complete Fourth Amendment violation. Now we can't even be out on the streets in public without being subjected to unwarranted searches, unreasonable searches. The Ray Kelly's very slick. He talks about the terahertz technology when he describes it. And he says that it measures energy, the radiation, terahertz energy emanating from your body, which is technically true. Our bodies do give off a small amount of terahertz radiation. But as we know from the MIT reports and the University of California, the terahertz radiation that comes out of these machines is far greater than what is emanating from our bodies. And the amount that the radiation is hundreds of times more than they had originally reported. University of California has sent a letter to John Holdren, the science advisor to President Obama, asking them to ban the use of these machines until more studies can be done. MIT came out with a report saying that the terahertz radiation actually weakens the bonds in our DNA, damaging the information, hindering our body's ability to heal itself, and potentially causing birth defects in future generations. So now the NYPD is just going to be blatantly scanning everybody on the streets in certain neighborhoods, Black and Latino primarily neighborhoods, because later Ray Kelly says that these would only be used in reasonably suspicious circumstances and that we could use it in crime-prone locations. So you can read that as minority neighborhoods. So again, the eugenics system at work through the police state. And that brings us to another point, another article from Aaron Dykes, the total federalization of police under the new Homeland Security mission. And this article is about a report by the Aspen Institute Homeland Security Group. And basically what they're saying is the war on terror is basically over, and potential terrorists now are domestic extremists, libertarians, Tea Party groups, Occupy Wall Street. These are the new terrorists that Homeland Security needs to turn its face onto. So we see that this mission creep, over time, they have incrementally taken the police state, implemented it for our safety against Al-Qaeda, and now they're turning it against the citizens with the passage of the NDAA, and now a lot of the CISPA has just passed the House, and it's going to the Senate to regulate free speech, and the police state is just clamping down, and it's for U.S. citizens. It's not for Al-Qaeda. So the NYPD, we know, for at least 6 or 7 years has been contracting with the RAND Corporation, military contractor, to write their policy. So under the Fusion Center system, which the NYPD Intelligence Division is a member, it's the Fusion Center in New York City is the NYPD Intelligence Center, otherwise known as the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative, which I will be covering in a special report later in the broadcast. So the Department of Homeland Security gives grants to the NYPD to beta test a lot of these different types of technologies, the terahertz scanners, and the RAND Corporation is consulting with them on how to present it to the public and how to sell these unconstitutional violations of rights to the public so that we accept them. It's all part of the federalization, bringing the NYPD, basically, which is a larger police force than even the FBI, and working together with the FBI, the CIA, and just basically blurring the lines under color of law to have a federal police force that's going to be, it's going to subjugate the NYPD to the federal government. These fusion centers are collecting information from all of these different venues, the audio and video surveillance, which I'll cover in the report, the stop and frisk data, all of that is fed into the central computers in the fusion center, and then the NYPD, FBI, CIA, NSA, DHS all have access to all of this information. A complete violation of the Constitution, which is meant to keep the state governments and the federal government separate. We're supposed to act as each state is really supposed to be a nation state in a union of nation states meant to protect against outside threats. So without further ado, check out this coming report on the NYPD Fusion Center at the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. Hello, this is Danny Panzella reporting from the NYPD Lower Manhattan Security Initiative with the first of several reports on the NYPD police state. Within this building behind me lies a high-tech surveillance command center that collects video and audio data from all over Lower Manhattan with a particular focus on the financial district known as Wall Street. With capabilities George Orwell could only fantasize about, the NYPD Intelligence Division, which runs this coordination center, boasts access to 5,000 city-owned and private security cameras. Mayor Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Ray Kelly want to bring that number to 30,000 cameras. Bloomberg is modeling the New York City system after London, which has one camera for every 13 people. The Downtown Security Initiative's sophisticated software can flag suspicious bags, which are seemingly abandoned. License plate readers can locate vehicles, and facial recognition can find and electronically track individuals walking on the street. Aside from the intrusive Big Brother aspect of the Downtown Security Initiative is the disturbing fact that executives from many of the top Wall Street firms like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan have permanent terminals within the command center, giving them the ability to spy on Lower Manhattan. They can track their competition or, as has been the case in the last few months, track the Occupy Wall Street protesters, targeting specific protesters or leaders for surveillance and then using the NYPD's paid detail unit to harass, detain, and arrest particularly pesky protesters. The Paid Detail Unit is a program that permits private corporations to hire NYPD officers to act as private security while being indemnified by the taxpayers. We will cover the PDU in greater detail in another report in this series. City Council member and head of the Public Safety Committee, Peter Vallone, could not offer much in terms of an explanation as to why private corporations are allowed to surveil the citizens in a taxpayer-funded center. He simply said that Wall Street firms give the NYPD access to their cameras as a condition they are allowed to access the center. This command center also serves another function as a federal fusion center, one of the many such centers around the country. The NYPD shares the data collected here with the federal government, including the National Security Agency, FBI, CIA, and Department of Homeland Security. According to Fusion Center documents, the intended purpose is to collect and share information from local law enforcement in a centralized database available to federal agencies. Fusion centers and their policies outrage civil libertarians because they blatantly violate the First, Fourth, and 10th Amendments of the Constitution. Civil rights concerns have fallen on deaf ears within the city, the main complaint being that regardless of the massive amounts of taxpayer money being spent, there has been no public input on the center or its policies. The privacy guidelines were written by Jessica Tisch, heiress to the Lowe's family fortune, while she was a law student at Harvard. Not surprisingly, Jessica is a friend of the Bloomberg family, and her father sits on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the private banking cartel made up by the same member banks that occupy the Downtown Security Command Center. I talked to some people on the streets of downtown Manhattan earlier about this technology, and here's what they had to say.
I don't think that is right. I think the government has to be for the people.
Well, that's practically what we're protesting, you know, it's fascism, you know. The bankers pretty much run everything.
That's definitely ridiculous.
Do you think the NYPD should be scanning people on the street without their knowledge?
I think that's a good idea. First and foremost, the safety of the scanners is still an issue.
So you're telling me a bunch of guys in the back of a truck are gonna walk around and be able to see through women's clothes?
Definitely something that I think you should always be told if you're being, if they're gonna check you for anything.
Does all of the police presence and surveillance make you feel safer?
No.
I mean, it could in theory, but it just seems a little too extreme.
No, I'm more scared. I'm more scared in the city now, seeing too much police around with guns and all that. I think it's very scary.
In our next report, we will be looking at some of the technology the NYPD is implementing, including drones, iris scanning and other biometrics, stop and frisk, and in the most blatant and shocking violation of civil rights, the NYPD is launching the use of the controversial naked body scanners used in airports on the streets of New York City. Watch Infowars.com and TruthSquad.tv for that important report.